The second episode of Light Chop opens with a mysterious and airy atmosphere building on the sense of suspense and unease that started in the first episode. The episode begins with a girl named Sinhai visiting a house that she is considering renting. The landlord, eager to secure a tenant, shows her around and praises the house, explaining how suitable it would be for her. Sinha, however, asks detailed questions about the house and its surroundings. Despite the landlord's focus on persuading her to quickly sign the contract, Sinhai continues to inspect the house thoroughly. The landlord assures her that if she doesn't like the house, he can show her others. However, Sinhai ultimately decides to take the house, hoping for peaceful living space. She asks the landlord if the place is really quiet, and he insists that no one lives there, making it a perfect spot for peace and solitude. Sinhai tries to open a door in one of the rooms, but it doesn't budge. The landlord explains that construction is ongoing in that room, advising her not to open it. He also mentions that the house is being offered at a slightly lower rate due to the ongoing construction work. Despite this strange situation, Sinhai agrees to move in, believing it will provide her with the tranquility she deserves. Sinhai moves into the house, unpacking her belongings and cleaning the space thoroughly. As she arranges her things, she notices the door the landlord had warned her about. Finding it odd, she decides to cover the door with a cloth, signaling her unease about the strange circumstances in the house. Meanwhile, Jiang, a young man, is shown walking down the street, nervously singing a song to himself. He seems frightened, especially when passing through an alley, as though something is following him. Suddenly, he hears a noise from behind, causing him to walk faster while continuing to sing. Eventually, he starts running away, clearly scared. Jiang eventually reaches the light shop, but in an unusual turn, he decides to leave without entering. This further adds to the suspense, as it's unclear why he seemed so frightened. Back at the house, Sinhai continues with her chores. When she hears Jiang's voice singing as he passes by, she is irritated and thinks to herself that the house isn't as quiet as the landlord claimed. Soon, the light in her house goes out and a shadow appears, hinting at something suspicious. Sinhai, confused, tries to turn lights back on but fails, thinking it's just because the house is old. However, the shadowy presence continues to linger, making her feel uneasy. Then episode shifts to a hospital setting where a doctor is examining a patient and discussing the lack of improvement in their condition. The doctor suggests that they may have to remove the patient's life support soon, as the patient's condition has not shown any sign of recovery. Meanwhile, a delirious patient starts groaning and mumbling to himself as if talking to someone invisible. The head nurse observes that this patient is an alcoholic, which may be disturbing the other patient. The doctor agrees and assures the nurses that arrangements will be made to handle the situation. The head nurse informs the doctor that this patient's guardians are outside. Staff members go to meet them. The doctor tells the family that they are doing everything they can, but the rest depends on the patient's willpower. Hearing this, one of the family members breaks down in tears, questioning the hospital's purpose and collapsing in sorrow, watched by everyone around them. Back at the house, Sinhai continues her work but starts feeling as though someone is watching her. She ignores the feeling and goes on with her task. Meanwhile, Jiang, still walking down the street, nervously singing his song, suddenly notices someone ahead of him, and it turns out to be Hayo, who mistakes Jiang for a ghost and runs away in fear. Back at the house, Sinhai hears Jiang singing once more and she becomes irritated again. Suddenly, the power in the house goes out again. Sinhai notices light emanating from the room where she had hung her clothes earlier. Curious, she approaches the room and opens the door. The next scene shifts to Yongji, who is in a washroom, seemingly disturbed after overhearing a conversation about a patient's deteriorating condition. She sits there when she hears footsteps and a knock on a door. A woman on the other side introduces herself as a patient's guardian and asks Yongji about the concept of patient's willpower when they are unconscious. Yongji shares her experience of having been in a similar situation after an accident, explaining how her mother's prayer gave her the willpower to recover. The woman, however, starts banging on the door, demanding that they save her loved one no matter what. The banging intensifies, and Yongji realizes the woman is someone named Haan, who screams in desperation. Terrified, Yongji looks around, but there is no one there. She quickly leaves the washroom in fear and walks away from this eerie encounter. Back at Sinhai's house, she enters the room where a single light bulb is glowing. She turns it off, but as she steps outside, the light bulb turns back on by itself. This unexplained event adds to the growing sense of unease in the episode. As Sinhai hears Jiang singing again, she becomes frustrated and opens the window, scolding him. Jiang, startled, runs away in fear. The next scene takes place in a school where classes are ending. A group of students is preparing to leave, but one student, Hayo, is still sleeping. The others briefly discuss whether they should wake her up but decide against it, leaving her behind. Icho eventually wakes up and realizes her friends have left her. As she ponders the situation, she notices another girl sitting beside her. This girl, like Heo, is concerned about something strange. Hyeoncho walks home in the rain, using a small torch to light her way. She comes across Haiwan, who asks her question like where she lives and where she headed. As they walk together, Hwancho noticed that Hawan's hair is unusually long and appears to be growing rapidly. Realizing that something is off, Hwancho recalls some of Wo Yang's earlier warning and pretends not to notice anything strange. Hwancho then excuses herself, saying she needs to leave quickly, but Haiwan starts following her. Panicking, Haichu runs to the nearby light shop, screaming for help. Wan Yong, the shop owner, comes out and helps her, advising her to go home to her mother. Wan Chu leaves, and Haiwan disappears after Wan Yong helps her. Meanwhile, Sinhai, still in her house, is suddenly woken by the sight of blood dripping near her. This unexpected and chilling moment emphasizes the mysterious forces at play in the house. The final scene shows Jeong walking down the streets when he almost bumps into Chi Young. If you have watched the first episode on my channel, you know that I have talked about this character in the first episode. They narrowly avoid each other, and Jeong mentioned that he's heading to the light shop where he hopes to find his way home. He asks Chi Young if she will accompany, and Chi Young started walking with him with her big suitcase. Meanwhile, Sinhae at home tried to own her life, but it doesn't work. So she decides to take a shower. While showering her hair, she sees that her strands are losing from her head. After the shower, she checks the drains and it's full of hair strands. At the same time, lights at the house starts flickering. Meanwhile, Ji-young and Ji-young are walking towards the alley. And Ji-young tells Ji-young that he has been here many times and there is a house here and it is always dark, but there is a light only in one room. He tries to look into it, but he couldn't find anything. He also told her that he has seen a girl coming from this house, but she is not alone. She is always with someone. Meanwhile, Sien-hye heard the creaking of the door behind her and she notices the shadow. She realized that the shadow has been following her around the house. And she also realized that the lights of the house are not malfunctioning, it's just not working where the figure, the shadow, is. And the shadow can only exist in the darkness. Meanwhile, Ji-young wonders if both the shadow and the girl are together. Ji-young tries to enter the house, but Ji-young doesn't let her do it and grab him down, and he fell down. However, he notices that Ji-young's fingers are bent unnaturally. And Ji-young tells Ji-young that they look similar to each other. Ji-young then realizes that her feet is twisted backwards and he starts running, but he couldn't escape. And Ji-young tells him that he will never be able to leave this place. Inside of the house, Si-hoon also tries to leave the house, but she couldn't. And she started screaming for help. Outside, Ji-young again finds himself in the same alley. Even though he was running from it, he again appears in front of the house. Then we see Ji-young entering the light shop, and Wo-young asking her why she's there with the suitcase. Won-young asks her if she is searching for something, and she replies, "You will know soon enough." At that time, a new character arrives, named Detective Sang-sik. And the episode ends here. Stay tuned for the next episode. Till then, take care. Bye bye.